guys, I hope you have your coffee ready. I hope you have your mugs ready because it's time for Coffee Break with Eddie T and
Mike Alvarez.
Welcome, guys. Today is another episode at Coffee Break with Eddie T and my good friend
Mike Alvarez.
So welcome. If this is your first time here, we want to welcome you, and we're hoping that this show today will make an impact on your life as we continue to pray and hope that it will do. So if you're coming back again, welcome, and we appreciate you coming back, and we want to encourage you to share this show. Tell others about what we're doing. Give us your comments, give us your love, give us your likes on social media, and we're hoping that you too will also be impacted by today's show. We've had already a couple other people on the show, and we're excited to let you see those shows. They're coming right your way very soon, and they're exciting moments, right, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely.
Some great people.
Yeah.
And so, Mike, what's up this week, man? How was your week?
I've just actually had a pretty busy week hanging out with some people that are involved in the name. We have several people actually now that are entrepreneurs and young people that are kind of starting their dream and really asking the right questions. And so we just spent some time. Actually, it was I think it was either this week or the end of last week that we sat with an entrepreneur. This guy who's just done very well for himself, and we sat down, asked him a lot of questions, and he really gave us a lot of feedback. And so just inspiring a lot of young people to start their life and start their career and start dreaming big. So that was a blast. We had a great time doing that.
So it's always exciting for me to hear you talk about creative people. We talked about it when we interviewed you about what you do creatively, and to actually hear you still work with creative people. So you've been throwing in the towel yet, huh?
Yeah, not yet. No,
you're still hanging in.
Yeah, I'm still in it to win it. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. This week was a great week for me as well. Actually, the past couple of weeks, been involved with a few projects, and one of them particularly is one of our guests on the show, and you'll be seeing her episode coming up. Actually, this weekend we'll probably be releasing the show.
Yeah.
We're working on her vocal stuff and a powerful song talking about her journey creatively and how God has been able to work in her life and how her story is making an impact people's lives. And so we were honored to have her. And so it's been an amazing
story,
week.
amazing singer. Yeah.
Yeah.
So awesome.
So we continue to share these stories with you guys, and we believe that everything that we do here is orchestrated by God. We really pray and ask God to lead us in all this. And sometimes we plan out a certain guest and we plan out something to happen on a particular show, and it doesn't always happen that way. Somebody else comes in, and today's show is actually along that line.
Yeah.
We were just planning out some people, and all of a sudden, my co-host, my friend, my buddy says, "Guess what? I got someone for you."
Yeah.
Somebody just, God did this. And you want to tell us a little bit about?
Yeah. A couple of years ago, I was invited to a church, and one of the guys actually attends Unnamed, which is the ministry that I run. He invited me to a church and said, "You've got to hear this guy's story." And he's like, "Mike, it's a story that you've never heard before." And I'm thinking, like, I've heard a lot of stories. Mm-hmm. I've seen a lot of stories on Facebook, and you think to yourself, you probably have heard all those crazy stories. And when I went to this church service, there was a guy by the name of Bruce Van Natta who was sharing his just this crazy story of what took place in his life. And after I got done hearing, I thought, oh my gosh, like, people have got to hear this guy's story. Well, he's actually going to be speaking at our ministry tomorrow.
Yeah, that's exciting.
And we've invited him to come and share his story today here at Coffee Break. And so I want to introduce you to Bruce. Bruce is with us today, and I'm so excited to have him here. And it's a real honor and privilege to have you here with us.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Bruce, his story, to jump in with Mike, I got a chance to see some of the many videos and links out there about your story out there. And it just, I don't want to spoil it, but I mean, just the things that he's going to share with us today, just some of it some people may find it almost like unreal. This is impossible.
Hard to believe.
You know, it's hard to believe. But here you're today here to witness and tell us that no, it is possible, because I'm here to tell you guys, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So and he's the connection, which is important. You know, he's an author. He's written books, and he'll tell us a little bit about that as well. And the other piece that I like, and we really connected, is that we're musically connected in one way or another. Well, there's two ways. Family. He's a family man, and his wonderful wife is with us today. She's behind the scenes. We're glad they're out here today, and straight from the state of Wisconsin, our neighboring state. But he's a family man, as I am a family man, and then his kids are musicians, and they're worship in worship teams. You know, as I have been most of my life. And so there was a spiritual connection there. There was a great moment to think, wow, this is awesome to have you on the show. I didn't know that your kids were musically, involved in worship teams. So that's exciting to me on the show. So, so Mike's got him coming out to an unnamed. When is it?
It's a Sunday, March 4th.
March 4th
at 5 p.m.
Yeah, 5 p.m. So. We're going to hand it to, Mike, because I know you're going to set this up a lot nicer than me. Welcome our guest here today.
Absolutely. So just before we kind of get started, I just want you to brag on your kids for a little bit. You have 4 kids.
There we go, some more.
Yes. Yeah. You have 4 kids. I thought I read you have twins.
Yep, twin boys.
Twin boys.
So we have 2 boys and 2 girls. We had a daughter first. She is now 20 years old.
Okay.
Our twin boys are about to be 19 in April. Okay. And the baby of the family just turned 17.
Okay. Wow. And they're all in college?
3 of the 4 in college, and the 17-year-old will be in college next year.
Okay, yeah.
That's great.
And as Eddie's mentioned, they're all apparently all musically inclined. And
the 4 of them actually their own worship team. So when we travel in this ministry, the 4 of them, if it works out, do the worship. So
and one's a bass player.
Yes.
I am a bass player.
Which is Eddie's a bass player.
Bass player.
Yeah.
That's your daughter.
The oldest.
I love it. This is great. You don't see, on a music note, it's rare to see a female bass player. So I'm excited to someday see her, slapping in there. Maybe she could teach me a thing or two.
I don't know. Maybe you could teach her a thing.
Well, I wanted to ask you, Bruce. I know in the beginning, before we get into the heart of your story, I wanted to ask you. You originally started out as an entrepreneur. You were a diesel mechanic, but you started a company. Can you tell us a little bit about what led you into that?
I was managing a large business for somebody else, and I realized in the state of Wisconsin there was a niche market that hadn't been serviced, and it's on-site diesel repair. So I ran a big diesel shop at a large truck. We sold new trucks and worked on trucks, and there are different times people would call us and say, hey, can you come work on this diesel engine remotely, like at a construction site or a farmer field, or maybe on the roof of a hospital, something like that. And so I realized there was a niche market that wasn't serviced that well, and there was a couple big dealerships, one out of Milwaukee, a couple big towns, and they were having to drive over the whole state. So we're originally from north central Wisconsin. We're living in southern Wisconsin, and when we moved back home, we started this business, and I traveled around the state of Wisconsin. I had a service truck with like $100,000 worth of equipment on it.
Wow.
Then I would just drive around, and one day I might be working on the roof of a hospital on a generator. The next day I might be working on a gravel pit. Just wherever there was a diesel engine that needed repaired, I specialized in diesel engine repair remote.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was a great business.
Yeah. And you did that. How long did you own your company?
Well, my dad actually, I grew up in a diesel repair shop. My dad owned a diesel repair shop, so I'd been doing it since I was 10.
Okay.
So I grew up doing it. I went to college, and then I came back and was in business with my dad for a while. And then we started our own business, started this diesel, and started that in 2003. We went on our own in 2003, and God just really blessed it.
Wow.
Oh, that's powerful.
Yeah. And then in 2006, something shifted for you. Something that kind of changed the trajectory of your life, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I want you to tell us a little bit about that, about what took place in 2006 and how did your life change and your family's?
Well, what happened in 2006, I was working on this huge Peterbilt logging truck, as big as a semi-truck as you would see anywhere. I had started the job on Tuesday. It's now Thursday, so I'd worked on it 3 days. It was an hour away from where we lived. So I'd drive an hour in the morning, work on it all day, drive an hour back. And so we're at the end of the job. A lot of times they would invite me in to work on stuff where maybe they had their own mechanics, but they didn't have the training or tooling to do it themselves. That's one of these situations. So I'm working with a mechanic from this logging company. I was working on the engine. It was an engine repair. We get to the end. In order to test the repair, we start it up. It's running. I'm putting my tools away. I look at the clock. I'm just getting ready to leave. I mean, I'm almost out of there. The guy comes up, taps me on the shoulder, and said, hey, will you look at one more thing? I ended up going underneath the truck. The truck was jacked up, and one of the front wheels was missing. So these really big diesel trucks weigh 16, 17, 18,000 pounds, the whole truck. But the front two wheels, on the front two wheels and the front axle, it's 5 to 6 tons. So 10 to 12,000 pounds of weight.
Wow.
I went underneath that axle. The guy got up in the truck. The axle is jacked up on one side, held up by a bottle jack. The jack slipped out, and this 5 to 6 tons of weight, this 10 to 12,000 pounds, fell right through the middle of my body as I'm laying underneath it and crushed me like a blunt guillotine. So when it fell on me, I ended up 1 inch thick here, 2 inches thick here, and that axle's about this wide. So between the bottom of my ribs and the top of my pelvic was completely flat. On impact, blood shot out of my body. When this thing fell through me, blood shot out, and I just called out to Jesus.
Wow.
And I remember saying 2 times, Lord, help me. The guy got out of the truck. He ended up jacking the truck up off me. When he did, I saw this. It looked like something on a cartoon. There was this big flat spot across the middle of my body. I was thinner than my spine. If you can imagine being thinner than your spine in the middle of your body, L4, L5 vertebrae, which is straight through where my belly button is, were both broken.
Wow.
So I was just a little bit thinner than my spine, right in the middle of my body, a lot thinner on the left, and maybe 2 inches thick at the most on the right, flat across the middle. So spleen, pancreas, small intestines, 5 places, arteries, different veins, everything was severed, crushed in the middle of my body. Everything that's in here was crushed.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so ended up...
Let me ask you, at that moment when that happened,
Yeah.
what was, and I know you said you yelled out Jesus, but what was there, what was the first thought that kind of entered into your mind when that happened? Were you conscious?
Totally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what was the first thought that hit you?
Insane pain.
Okay.
I can't even describe how bad it hurt.
Yeah.
So then you mentioned Jesus.
I said, Lord, help me.
Lord help me.
referring to
So
Jesus.
when you said Lord help me, I take it you were a man of faith prior to this.
Yeah, well, my background is not a church background.
Okay.
I grew up in a family, my parents would have called themselves Christians. My dad was a non-practicing Lutheran. My mother was a non-practicing Catholic. They got married, became Creasters. We only went to church. We only went to church on Christmas or Easter.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Drugs, alcohol, partying, real dysfunctional family. I was verbally abused as a child, physically abused, sexually abused for about 1.5 years by some babysitters where I lived, and so just this crazy dysfunction family. And so I didn't grow up with a Jesus background, but God had reached out to me as a child. I had experience with Jesus at 5 years old. It basically set in my mind that Jesus was real, and I had that all the way through, but I got involved with drugs and alcohol. So I spent 20 years of my life smoking pot every day, drinking, snorting coke, just living, crazy and wild, selling drugs, living that whole life. And then a year before the accident, we were going to church for several years too, by the way, in the middle of all that. And a year before the accident, the Lord sent some missionaries, prayed for me, and cast that stuff off me, and I got set free. So I was completely sober for a year, and then the accident happened.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Wow. So at that moment you have this axle that lands on you, and you scream out, you yell out for God.
Lord help me.
Yeah, Lord help me. And so what took place after that?
Well, I get crushed in half. The guy gets down out of the truck, the other mechanic. He jacks the truck up off me. I'm flat. I'm panicking. I beg him to get me off from underneath the truck.
Yeah.
Because I was afraid the jack was going to slip again.
Yeah.
So I'm going into shock. What I didn't know is when he jacked it up off of me, because of the 5 places the arteries were severed, I began to bleed to death. I didn't know it, but so I'm in shock. I'm panicking. He won't touch me. He's scared because he sees I'm flat. So I reach back and grab the bumper just behind my head, the big chrome front bumper. I drag myself out this far. Now this much of me is sticking out from underneath the front bumper. And at that point, the first 2 people from the volunteer fire department, because it's in the middle of nowhere, logging camp, right?
Sure.
In the middle of nowhere. The first 2 people get there, and I begin to get woozy. Again, I'm bleeding out. I don't realize it. And they talked to me a little bit, and at that point I died. I can say I died for a couple reasons. I had a heartbeat. I had a pulse when they showed up. Within minutes of them getting there, no more heartbeat, no more pulse. At the point that my heart stopped, my spirit left my body, went up the roof of the garage, and I just watched the whole thing from above. I go from feeling this insane pain to just feeling incredible peace. I'm watching it from above, and I see on each side of my body 2 humongous angels, approximately 8 feet tall, based on the fact that the guy I was working with was 6 feet tall, and their heads stuck up a couple feet taller than his. Broad shoulders, white shining robes, long hair, and they had their hands in the middle where I was crushed flat. So they were just ministering to me from the middle. People are coming and going. They're saying it's too late. There's nothing they can do for me. And I'm just up here. I could care less. My spirit watching from above. And then this lady showed up. She was a 2-month-old baby Christian, 38-year-old woman, had only been believing in Jesus for 2 months. She gets down between the angels, and she prayed and asked God to bring me back to life. When she did, my spirit came back into my body. It hurt so bad I didn't want it. I said no. I made the decision no. My heart stopped again. My spirit left my body, and then you hear about these near-death or out-of-body experiences.
Yeah.
A tunnel opened up going out of the roof of the garage, and they talk about the tunnel with the light on the end of it. That's exactly what I saw.
Wow.
Going out of the roof of the garage. I got in the tunnel, left the garage, and I started going towards the light. Felt great. I'm going away, and I could hear her yelling my name back there behind me. She prayed me back to life the second time. I come back in, and that's when God actually spoke to me. I didn't see him, but I know that I heard him. And he simply said, if you want to live, you're going to have to fight, and it's going to be a hard fight. That's all he said. And I just thought about it like 2.2 seconds. I'm like, forget this. It hurts too bad. I don't want to fight this.
Yeah.
So then, now the third time, my spirit leaves my body. I get in the tunnel. I'm going towards the light again. And that lady prayed me back to life one last time. And when my spirit came in that last time, she said, Mister, you're on the verge of life and death. What do you have to fight for? Do you have a wife? Do you have kids? Do you have anything in this world to fight for? You mentioned being a family man. It hurt too much to fight for myself. But I didn't even think about my wife or kids until she said that, reminded me. And when I remembered my wife and kids, I'm like, oh my goodness, they need me. They need a dad. They need a husband. So I'll stay for them. It hurt too much for me, but I could fight for them. She said, don't close your eyes. Wow. You're on the verge of life. Stay here. So I did end up getting med flighted to the state's largest trauma center. And I spent the next year in the hospital. I'd get out for a couple weeks, go back in for a couple months, in and out, 5 operations, went through rehab, coma, I mean, just thing after thing, multiple operations, multiple miracles for me to be here.
Wow.
10 years later, 11 years later.
You know, the one piece that, because as a boy, you know, as a child, and I came to the Lord at the age of 14 years old, and you've always, you hear about angels, you know, but that always seemed like fairy tales. I'm like, is it possible that there are angels? And we know our faith says there's angels out there.
Yeah.
To hear your story about angels, to put that to tell the people, hey, there really is angels. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Everybody's seen that cartoon.
Yeah.
Little red devil on one shoulder, little angel on the other shoulder. And that's such a perfect picture of the unseen spiritual realm around us. Yeah. That's legit. Yeah. They're angels and they're demons. They're both real. And those angels that were on each side of my body, just like I said, white robes, emanating light. They didn't have wings. The Bible mentions angels approximately 295 times, just under 300 times. Sometimes they have wings, sometimes they don't. It says sometimes they look like normal people, sometimes they don't. These guys look like normal people, except 8 feet tall, really broad shoulders, big muscles. I mean, they were muscle bound, narrow waist, just chiseled, tight. The robes were made out of a weird material. It looked like ropes woven together. I've never seen material like that on clothing. Yeah. And they didn't talk. They never spoke to me or anything. They just had their hands in the middle where I was flat. Yeah. And they had really long hair. And sometimes religious folks get weird about guys with long hair. Sure. I'll tell you what.
These guys
had long hair.
You were glad they were there for it. And I guess these angels had a mission, because I've always heard the story. The Bible talks about the angels have different callings, right? Yeah. And that these particular angels, they were there to help through the pain.
The word angel means minister, and it says in Hebrews 1:14, God sends his angels to minister to those who inherit salvation. So they were there ministering to me.
Wow. That's powerful.
And you are the, as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, you are the only person, as far as we know, documented that to survive the kind of injuries that you had.
Well, they say that about one part of my injuries. I had 5 places that major arteries were completely severed. So they say if you have one major artery severed, you're going to bleed to death 8 to 10 minutes. And I had 5. So about the time that I died, as soon as they jacked the truck up off me, 2 to 3 minutes after they jacked the truck up off me, I bled out, which is about what they said was what they would expect. Yeah. But yet I lived, and get this, it was over 2 hours from the point the truck fell on me until they operated on me in the hospital, with 5 places, major artery severed, and I should have died when I died. Yeah. But yet God sovereignly, miraculously kept me alive. And they say that I'm the only one they can find in the world that's lived with major arteries being severed in 5 places, and they base that off of a couple things. There's some large studies that were done on the mortality rate and then versus the number of arteries being severed. And they just compare my case against those studies. Wow. And that's how they make that claim. Wow. I don't make that claim. There was doctors that cared for me that actually told us that.
Yeah.
You know, this happened in 2006, right?
Correct.
And we were
very end of it, November.
Yeah. So and we're in 2018. Yep. So one of the things that I think in the creative world is sometimes we go through is being repetitive, the same thing over and over, and at some point you feel like I'm tired of doing this, and I lost track of how many times your story has been online and how many people and shows you've been on to. So what is
over
it?
40 some television shows, over 100 radio shows, and like
Wow.
way over 100,000 people in person.
So do you ever feel like it's like, all right, I'm done telling this story. This is exhausting. I'm not seeing the results, or this is. Can I do something else? Do you ever?
Well, the first time I went to church, they always want me to share my testimony, and I look forward to when they invite me back the next year, and I don't have to share my testimony, and I can preach whatever God's given me.
That's awesome.
Because after I'm keeping track. After 1,300 times of publicly sharing the testimony.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because you don't want it to get old, and it
Right.
is such a crazy, incredible story, and I know it really impacts and affects people when they hear it. They're like, "Wow, a truck fell on this guy and it crushed him in half, and the angels showed up, and then this lady prayed him back to life, and all this stuff." So it is a very impactful testimony, and I don't want to ever let that become dull or old.
And hearing you, it's like I'm hearing it when you first spoke about it earlier. Like I went to one of your videos earlier on.
Yeah.
You've done 700 Club and some
Yeah.
other shows, and the same energy that you produced on that show is like I feel that same energy now, like the same excitement about sharing the story, and that's exciting. I get that, and it's like, man, this is powerful.
Well, I have to say this: the first couple years,
Yeah.
when I would share the testimony, I couldn't do it without just breaking down crying because it was so.
Sure. So yeah.
I'm sure that
Okay.
the memory of that and how traumatic it was.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. Was
It
pretty
was.
tough. And I know we just have a few minutes left, but I'm curious to know, and I think I either heard you say this or I read it somewhere, was that they had to remove most of your small intestines.
Correct.
Because it had been injured so badly. I
Right.
think it said that you were only left with, was it 3 feet of intestines?
A little less than 3 feet,
A
yeah.
little less. And so the intestines are it's one of very few organs that can't regrow itself
Correct.
again.
Correct.
So they were feeding you
Intravenously.
Yeah, intravenously. And then the doctors had said to you that more than likely you couldn't survive that way.
Right.
So they only gave you really a certain time
Yes,
to
they
live.
did.
Can you tell us briefly?
I was starving to death.
Yeah, you were starving to death.
Starving to death.
So can you tell us briefly how is it that you are standing? Like you can literally stand.
Yeah.
You are literally an intact man.
Right.
So
adults have 18 to 20 some feet average
Yeah.
of length of small intestine. Like you said, I had a little bit less than 3 feet.
Yeah.
I lost 65 pounds. I'm starving to die, and they're feeding me intravenously, but I'm starving to death, dying.
Yeah.
At that point, I said I want to leave the hospital, and they said you're not going to ever leave the hospital. And I said, well, you can't keep me here forever. And that's when we found out. My wife and I found out. The doctor said we're not going to keep you here forever. We can only keep you alive a year to year and a half at the very most.
Wow.
So I've already lost 65 pounds, which if you saw me 65 pounds less than I look like somebody straight out of a concentration camp, like unrecognizable. And it was at that point, my wife had me on prayer chains around the country. Thousands of people were praying for me. We got bags of letters, literally. I still got them, still have them. Bags of letters of people that I didn't even know that were praying for us during that time. A guy in New York named Bruce Carlson was woken up by the Lord 2 mornings in a row. God said, buy a plane ticket, fly to Wisconsin, pray for him, and I'm going to do a miracle. And when the guy did, he prayed, laid hands on my forehead, prayed for me, and God literally did a creative miracle where I received 9 to 11, they can't say for sure, but it's 9 to 11 feet of small intestine out of nowhere. So literally creative miracle. So I go from this much intestine now and add 9 to 11 feet to it. So it's the reason why I'm alive. Otherwise, I would have died.
So
Wow.
one day you only have less than 3 feet of small
Correct.
intestines.
Right.
The following day,
Yes.
like literally the following day,
Right.
you have
Yeah.
brand new small intestines.
1/2 of my intestines back.
Wow.
And it's totally doctor documented. CAT scans, x-rays, upper GIs, MRIs, all the different radiological ways they can look at it.
Yeah.
There's so many before and afters, there's nobody that can say it didn't happen.
Wow.
And they can't,
That's-
they don't anymore, nobody does a transplant on small intestine anymore. There's like one hospital, but no one's ever lived from it. They always die, so it's like
Wow.
insurance companies won't pay for it.
So you share the story. That's just so powerful. I mean, listening to you, and it's just like almost so real of what you've gone through. You've shared the story. You've been on TV. You've been on radio. Now, where do you feel today? This journey. What you're out there as a public speaker. You've got a couple books out there. You tell your story. Where do you feel? What impact do you feel that has made in your life today, going forward? I mean, what has been happening with you now?
Well, again, as we travel around and speak, on average, anywhere from 100 to 150 times a year. That's how many times I'll do service on average year. In the last 10 years, it's averaged out 135 is what we've averaged out, like 135 services per year the last 10 years. And so as we do that, the first book was actually a Christian bestseller. That's Saved by Angels.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Saved by Angels, to share how God talks to everyday people. So that one was a Christian bestseller. The next book, A Miraculous Life. God wants all people to live, all Christians, all people, to live a miraculous life. And that book is a workbook on what that looks like. 40-some miracle testimonies in that, and different. As you said, all the different videos and different things. And I just want people to know, look, God is real. He's alive and well. He loves us. If God would send angels for me, if He'd send somebody to pray for me back to, some stranger to pray me back to life, some guy, somebody I'd only met one time from New York to come pray and a creative miracle happen and all this stuff. If He'd do it for me, He'd do it for anybody. I just, that's why it's important for me to mention my background. I wasn't Mr. Religious guy, drugs, alcohol, so... For me, that's a big part of the story of God's mercy. His mercy's not getting the punishment we deserve.
Yeah.
And so that, for me, that's a big part of the story, and to give people hope that God is real and He does love us. We can't earn it or deserve it. It's a free gift. Otherwise, I'd be dead. I wouldn't be here.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so you haven't come across now after this whole, you've not come across in your life where, no, man, I'm done. I'm throwing in the towel. You feel like the energy's still the same. I'm pressing forward.
Man, I'll tell you what. I've had some rough spots. I have, and it's not. It's never because of God. It's never because of anything. But ministry's hard. Ministry's not easy, and there's just been some times where I don't question God. I don't question His faithfulness or His goodness. But there's just different times where it's gotten hard. Where I said, this is a lot harder than what I thought it was going to be. And then I realize that I'm relying on myself more than on relying on God. And when I get my focus back and focus on Him and what He wants me to do, and then He says His yoke is easy, His burden is light. And if I go back to what He's doing and do it in His way, then it becomes easier again. So it's we have to stay focused. It's easy to get out of focus when you're really busy.
Yeah. How just now that you're post accident, as you've traveled around, you said you shared your story 1,300 times at least, and you've spoken in different churches and prayed for even people too.
Thousands of people.
And you've seen some creative miracles yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, lots.
How has that changed your life or even impacted your life in some way?
When you see somebody get out of a wheelchair that doctors say is never going to walk, that they're paralyzed, when you see a blind eye open, when you see a deaf ear open, when you see a tumor fall off, when you see a crooked bone go straight, when you see somebody that, doctors say are, they're on hospice care, they're dying, and God heals them up, it's humbling because you go, God, it's just amazing. You allow me to even see the kind of stuff that you're doing. And to someone just play a little part of it, because I'm not a healer. I'm just there, just praying, and we're just believing that God's going to answer those prayers. Yeah. The hard part is for the people I pray for that don't get healed. Mm. For me, that's my biggest struggle. Because let's say on an amazing service, maybe it's 20-25% receive a miracle. That leaves 80% that don't. We have had services where it's been 80, 90, almost 100%, but that is so rare that many they receive a miracle healing. That's I'm talking 5 services out of 1,300.
Wow.
It's super rare. The majority, God made a promise to me. He said it will never be less than 10%.
Oh, wow.
He promised me that years ago. He said it will never be less than 10%. Sometimes we did a head count. I used to do this. I used to do a head count to see how many, and sometimes it would be literally to the person 10%. The God rebuked me and said, quit counting. So I don't do it anymore. But He said it would never be less than 10. And if it's 10% minimum or up, then it's 20%, 10, 15, 20%, which that's really cool for those people. But my heart breaks for the people that walk away and they're still wounded, or walk away still have a drug addiction, it's awesome when God does the miracle. Yeah. And everybody jumps up and shouts, it's amazing to see that.
We need to see more nowadays, right?
Absolutely.
That's something that seems like it's like the past. You don't see miracles in churches or in hospitals as much as we used to. Mm-hmm. So it's great to hear that. Yeah. Bruce's books are going to be available. They are available, and they're on Amazon, and we're going to provide several links to Bruce at the end of the show, and so you want to find out more about Bruce, you're going to click on those links and you're going to tell other people about his story, because it has to make an impact on people's lives. We need to help share Bruce's story with the rest of the world, and I know you travel the world, inclusive, not just here locally, but you're all over the world sharing your story. So, we always close the show with a wonderful question.
And a challenging question.
A challenging question for many. So, Mike, what is that question? Why don't we just give it to you to hand it over?
Yeah. If Bruce, and this is again a question that we ask every single person that we've interviewed, but if you could sum up your ministry or what you do in one word, in terms of effectiveness. Actually, I've tried not the word effectiveness, but if you could sum up what you do in one word of your ministry, of what you're trying to accomplish, what would that be?
Well, I'm going to cheat and use 2 words.
Okay.
It would be eternal fruit. And what I mean by that is this. Let's say we pray for somebody, and they've got cancer, and they get healed from cancer. But at some point, they're going to die again. And when I read the Bible, I count 8 people that are raised from the dead other than Jesus. But yet, every single one of those people raised from the dead, what happened? They died again. Every single person that had a blind eye that was open, every person that had a deaf ear that was open, at some point they died. That miracle came to naught. I was literally prayed back to life 3 times. I was dead. I'm just like one of those 8 people, man. I was dead. God used that lady. She prayed me back to life 3 times. But yet, I'm going to die again at some point. And that miracle is just going to turn to nothing. There's only one miracle that lasts forever. Eternal fruit means this, that I can share my testimony with people and say, Jesus is real. And you have to think about what your eternal destiny is. That means when you die, when your spirit leaves your body, like my spirit left my body, where are you going to spend eternity? Because you are going to spend eternity somewhere. The Bible says you're going to either spend eternity in heaven or you're going to spend eternity in hell based on one thing. And it's not how good of a person you are. It's, do you have a relationship, intimacy with Jesus Christ? Has he washed your sins away so that you can be in fellowship with him? That's the most eternal thing. The only decision that lasts forever. So if I could describe it, it'd be eternal fruit. Telling people, look, you got to think about this. It's real, and you need to make a choice or decision. And by saying that you don't make a choice or decision, I can wait till later. You've already made a choice or decision not to do anything about it. And it's serious stuff, man, because people die all the time. I was 36 when the truck found me. I thought I was bulletproof and never going to die.
Wow. That's amazing.
Wow. Or I had a lot more time.
Absolutely.
Well, so eternal fruit. We will accept 2 words.
All right. From you,
that is powerful.
Okay.
Yes,
right,
Bruce
cool.
gets away with 2 words. A powerful story like that. I mean, it's amazing. So, if people want to know more about Bruce, you want to tell the audience, where could they find you? We're going to provide links for them. But
so our ministry website is sweetbreadministries.com. sweetbreadministries.com. I'm just feeling there's probably going to be some people that are watching this, thinking about this, and they're like, you know what? That sounds like a bunch of baloney. It's really hard for me to believe it. I can totally get that because it's funny. I have a very skeptical nature, so I'm just going to make it a little bit easier for a few of you, and I just want to show you something. So if you look at this is what 5 operations look like. If for you, hopefully the camera can see that good. This is what 5 operations look like. So again, I spent the year in the hospital. You can see how wide the scar is. That's because they went through it 5 different times. You can see the edge. I had J tubes and G tubes and different drainage tubes in me. So God is real.
Wow.
He is alive and well, and he's still doing miracles.
Look, I didn't expect that, and I'm moved by it. So thank you for that. And that definitely was ordained. So I appreciate that today. And man, I mean, what a way to close the show.
I'm telling you. This is why I wanted you guys to hear his story, because it totally rocked my world when I heard it 2 years ago, and I'm so glad that you guys got a chance to experience it and hear his story. And I would encourage you, if you're a pastor, if you're a leader, if you run a ministry and you're looking to bring someone on that has an effective ministry, I'm telling you, Bruce is that guy for you. And bring he and his family in. I'm telling you, they're going to rock your world. And it's going to make an impact in your ministry. So
it is, and those who are writers, authors who are looking to write books, this is how Bruce is able to tell his story, and I hope that encouraged you. If you got an experience and something that you went into and you want to share with others, don't give up. It's been 12, 11, 13 years.
If I can write a book, anybody can. I typed with one finger.
Hunt and peck. My kids call it hunt and peck.
Yeah, well, I doubled my typing speed.
Added the other one. There we go.
And by the end of the book, I was typing with 2 fingers. So
that's awesome.
And the second book, I just started out with the 2 fingers and never left there. Yeah.
Well, listen, Bruce, thank you so much for coming out today, man.
Thank
It was
you,
a
man.
blessing
Thank
and
you.
awesome to
Thank you.
have
Thank
you.
you.
And Mike,
Appreciate it.
Mike and I really enjoyed you. And
Thank you.
be looking out for this show. And again, you have to share this story. You have to give Bruce some likes, some love, and follow this guy, follow what he does, man, and follow Unnamed. And he's going to be out there, and I'm sure you're going to make an impact on those creative lives. We have a lot of creative people in your group. So
Yeah, you can hit us up on Facebook as well. It's Sweetbread Ministries. You can find us there.
yeah, so look that up. And so thanks for joining us, folks. We love you so much. Continue to pray for the show. We want to see this show grow. We want to see where God wants to take us. And until next time, we'll have you soon, right, Mike?
Yeah.
With some coffee break
Yeah.
with Eddie T. And
Mike Alvarez.
see you soon.